The exhibition itself presents the entire career of Cindy Sherman. A retrospective of her work does not follow the usual path of a retrospective. There is not a chronological order to this exhibition. Cindy Sherman, when we talked about the exhibition, asked us not to follow the chronology of her work. She wanted to see something in the work that she might not have seen before. She wanted to be surprised. She wanted us to actually invent a structure, invent a path within our work. So what we have done, and you'll see that as you walk throughout the exhibition, is that we invented scenarios. We invented 3 movements in the exhibitions, 3 different scenarios. One will be, and we are in one of them here, the great master rooms, like at the Louvre or at the Met in the painting room, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. Another one is the masquerade that you will see is articulated around the importance in our work of the notion of the mask that conceal and reveal the face and the portrait. We could write the history of a certain history of art through the notion of mask, at least in the Western world, in the Western culture, from the very, very early first iteration of portraits. And the last one of the other, the third scenario that we invented is a pastoral, the presence of the body, of narrative within natural setting where good things and bad things happen. And actually this idea of inventing scenario is fully inspired, we didn't invent anything, fully inspired by the way Cindy Sherman herself conceived of her works. I almost say her paintings because I'm surrounded by images that look more like painting than photographs. But if you look at her work in details, whether I'm talking about the film stills, the work that are around me in the room, they are full of details that trigger your imagination. They invite you to invent stories, narrative around each images. Each visitor in front of every single image in this exhibition could invent a story, a narrative around the character represented in these works. So here, in this room, in this series of rooms, as I mentioned earlier, we are surrounded by this body of work, inspired by the great masters of painting and portraiture. And I would say that if you look around, all these images could find their roots, almost like medieval paintings, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century paintings, from royal portraits, religious portraits to bourgeois. What's quite interesting, what's very interesting in this portrait is that they, like the film stills, they are all copies without a model, because even though you can identify the codes, the style, the general flavor of one images. Like this one might look like a painting by Jean-Dominique Ingres. The earlier, I was in front of a portrait with a woman holding a child. That could be a nativity, that could be a Madonna. That looks almost exactly, in some details, like a Jean Fouquet painting. But they are all removed from an original. What's interesting too, when you enter a room like this one, because it's mimicked, it's built to look like a traditional museum with all the attributes of the power of a museum, of the authority of the museum. You have the golden frame, you have the warm color on the wall. Actually, we mimicked the color of the Louvre, of some of the room of the Louvre, to give this room the feeling of this kind of authoritative museum that presents, the convention of portraiture. And again, everything is there. The format of the portrait, the size of the portrait, the golden frame. I mean, what is a work of art? Like the stereotype of a work of art is something that you can identify, which is flat, it's figurative, it's on the wall, and it's framed, and it's called a painting. So what Cindy Sherman does here, using photography, is that she's using painting as a model. They are painting objects. When you look at them, you have to understand that they are not only the portrait, it's not only the image, it's not only the photograph, which is the work of art, but here, of course, you have the portrait, but the frame. The frame become part of the work. The frame contribute to make this work painting format, a painting object.